40 chess. Yeah. 40 chess. 40 chess. Let's get it.
Yo, is that T-Dog?
40 chess. 40 chess. Hey. 40 chess. This a trade show. Patreon where the trades go. Tap in and watch. That's what you came for. Ain't gotta say my name. They know my name, bro.
What's good, man?
We got McNutted in ATM. Always start off the show with a trade from them. You should always make sure that your trade is in. Patreon, why not be a Patreon? Know you wish you could spend every day with them. Tap in and say what you gon' say with them. South Harmon can fill up a stadium. Next time you log in, make sure that you bring a friend. We about to kick off, let the day begin. Go follow the socials. 40 Chess FF is posted. If your trade is an F, you get roasted. Go like and subscribe for the crew. Apple, Spotify, and the YouTube. You know Cooper got the WoRP too. Let us give you a walkthrough. 40 Chess. This is 40 Chess.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's get it. Welcome back in, everybody, to another edition of the 40 Chess Dynasty Football Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Adam, a little bit on the later side tonight, starting this off live for the patrons, but we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We got plenty of time. We got plenty of time. First off, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing real well.
Tuesday evening.
Really good Tuesday evening, man. You know, we got...
Dude, I got my shirt today.
I just got mine too, and you know what? I should have thrown it on. Damn, would have been awesome. America's game, you know.
Yeah, I got to rock it. Got to represent. Eric's killing it. Everything he does, waiver wire, America's game, and then joining us on Start Sit. And the short Christian made today that I dropped was hilarious.
It was fantastic. As soon as it starts off with you, you're like, oh no, what is this going to be? This is awesome. Holy crap. We could make a lot of those shorts. Those could be a weekly thing. Me missing on Start Sit.
Yeah. Who needs fucking fantasy receipts when, you know, we got South Harbin receipts? We just make fun of ourselves. Well, fantasy receipts kiss our ass.
You know, I give you plenty of chances to make fun of my Start Sit ones. McLaughlin, you know, Breece.
Why you guys want to start Breece?
Why do you want to start Breece? Yeah, Denver's good for a 72-yard run to the house from everybody, right?
Good. Listen, somebody reached out on Twitter and had just asked about WoRP in general, and I know we've talked a metric fuck ton about WoRP, but how about we do some basic here, Adam? I'm looking at WoRP and let's give the people some actionable advice on like players you would buy based off of WoRP right now through 5, and then talk about what we pay for them.
Okay.
Right? And if we're doing this, just keep in mind, right? Let's preface it by saying we're doing this from the lens of a contender. Okay, I'm not giving you dynasty buys based off of WoRP when you're not competing until 2024, right? That shit don't matter. Okay, WoRP does not factor into long-term rebuilds. No one cares.
Yep.
No one really cares.
It's not predictive in that way.
No. So I got it pulled up for a best ball league, and I'm just looking at true WoRP per game.
Which league are you looking at?
So I'm looking at the 12 by 1130 PPR.
Perfect.
Best ball, right? And started with the quarterback position, Adam. Even though Russell Wilson's kind of played bad, or it seems like he's played bad, still near the top, right? Your dynasty buy, your ATM's money move, the first one that you put out, still looking good, man. Do you anticipate like it getting like just super catastrophic for Russ? You know, like maybe like it has for Daniel Jones, or like are you still wanting to buy Russ? Because I look at it and I go, damn, dude's still maintaining here. Like he's still at the upper half of the quarterback list. If I just look at points on WoRP per game, he's number 6, Adam. Still we're 5 weeks in. He's had a couple of what we perceive as doozy games and still up there.
Yeah, I mean. Like, Russ is one that, no, I'm not worried because – so what's going to happen? I mean, is Denver going to all of a sudden turn it around and start winning a shit ton of games? I doubt it. I mean, could it happen? Sure, but my point is if it doesn't, he still has enough weapons, and he still can throw the ball. And if they're in a negative game script all the time, he's going to be scoring fantasy points. I think sometimes corollaries between team success and player success don't have to be completely intertwined. Like, his role is already shown you all these weeks. Now, is he going to be winning a bunch of football games? No. Is there going to be some bad weeks that he has this season? I'm sure. Like, where he's not actually that good in points per game or in WoRP. But no, I mean, for what he cost and for his perception, like, since I made that video, he's maintained his value, and his perception's almost going down still. So
right, still tanking. Still maintaining.
It's almost like I was a little too early, because you probably get him cheaper today.
So, contender lineup league, need a little bit of quarterback help, maybe solidify the QB2 spot. You comfortable sending a first in the lineup for Russ?
So, I mean, I would say, given what we are experiencing right now, I would try to do something where I'm not actually sending the liquid first. But if I had to, yeah, if that's what I needed to, I would do it.
Could you do something like maybe sell a younger quarterback who's underperforming? Mac Jones is hated. Kenny Pickett is, the roller coaster of Kenny Pickett, like maybe that one. Do you attach like a second to one of those guys and go like, yeah, I'm just really trying to solidify this QB2 spot?
I still think you could probably send like those type of quarterbacks for him and get him right and get him straight up.
No, you very well could. Very well could.
Like the Keep Trade Cut's going to tell you they need to send you a plus.
Yeah. All right, let's move down one spot. The guy right below him. I don't know. Could we get this guy a nickname? Other than like Flying Hawaiian. Like, could we get like Mr. Consistent? Tua Tagovailoa, number 7, WoRP per game.
Yeah.
This is on some rougher games, right? Mm-hmm. He had 2 interceptions this past week. Still didn't really matter. Still put up fantasy points. Still a WoRP difference maker at the quarterback spot. Adam, I would definitely I would value this dude as a QB1, like your number 1 QB on a Superflex team pretty easily.
For sure.
What would you pay to go get Tua? Like, I don't see this changing anytime soon. I know the loss of A-Chain for a few weeks here while he's on IR, I guess, with this knee injury is probably going to hurt a little bit, but the rest of that offense, I mean, Tyreek Hill's healthy, Jalen Waddle's healthy, Raheem Mostert has been a godsend. And now you can officially go ahead and talk about Jeff Wilson.
I was about to say, I was waiting for Mike to say all this Jeff Wilson hate's coming to, right to fruition here.
Right back. Tua.
Yeah, Tua, I think Tua's probably, is he going to cost two first?
I don't think he quite costs that, just because people still carry that negative about Tua still. Even when he hits,
the concussions, right?
The concussions, and he doesn't have the strongest arm, even though he hits Tyreek Hill in stride multiple times for long touchdowns. No one really seems to care or give him credit, but I don't think he quite costs 2 first. Let's say you did, though. Would you be comfortable paying on a contender? You're 24 and you're 25, let's say.
It's not the price; it's the way in which I'm purchasing Tua. I think that I would have a little more of an issue with. Like, I'd like to even send one of my first and then find a first player range, right, and try to get him that way, as opposed to sending my first out for 2025. But if you told me I had to, and that's all I was missing, it's just when you make a lot of moves like that, where you're buying an individual player for your first the next 2 years.
Tough.
No matter how good that player is, there's a lot more outs for them than there is for you.
What about sending like a Daniel Jones in your first?
Easy.
Okay. Yeah. I just throw them out there because some people might actually accept a Daniel Jones because they're like, oh, it's going to get better. It can't always be this work. He's got the contract. He's still young. He's got the rushing upside. All that. Maybe that's kind of the piece you attach with a first to go get a guy like Tua, which I think would be a reasonable move. What about like a Baker? Baker's really starting to climb in value. People really start to like him. Actually, I just made a trade today.
Baker's going to be on the money moves this week, man. I'll give you a little sneak peek.
Let's go, man.
I can't believe I'm doing that either. I hate that, him being the old Brown.
I just traded away Baker, actually. And got the aforementioned Daniel Jones plus Tyler Conklin, just in a best ball league, just getting another piece.
I don't mind it in best ball. Conklin's a piece that's slept on.
0.75 tight end premium best ball, just adding bodies.
You need to add. Sometimes you got to get crafty to add those types to the room,
Right. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on Baker, but I think that might be another one maybe you attach first to. and to really upgrade to get
Yeah.
to that solid, like tier 1 type, asset at the quarterback position.
See, that's the weird thing about Russ, right? So when we kind of bring this all together, and then the way you would actually use this information and like the way I process it and the way I want to implement it, what's interesting is like, okay, when you gave me the first for a Russ question, it's not that I don't want to, that I'm not comfortable with the value really. It's more so if I'm doing something to quarterback, I would rather, for the most part, if I'm sending liquid picks, I would rather go to like the Baker range. Like I'd rather find somebody that's not going to probably cost me a first and acquire one to fill in the gap there, or let me go a lot closer to the mountaintop and like, all right, let me send one of those lower quarterbacks plus something, including a first, and go get myself solidified. Like if with Russ, when I send a first, it feels like by doing that with that liquid pick, I could probably attach something to go higher or just drop down a little bit and not get Russ's WoRP, but get replaceable level, get me by level with like a Baker or something for a lot cheaper.
I really wanted to put Kirk Cousins on this list, but with the Justin Jefferson news for the next 4 weeks, like it's really hard for me to say go buy Kirk Cousins. Not because I think he's a bad player, but you take the best receiver out of an offense for 4 weeks. Like as much as you like Addison, or as much as I think KJ Osborne's a little bit underrated, and they got some pieces, and that offense is going to have to throw the ball because they can't run it for shit. You still go, man, like you can't take away a Justin Jefferson from a quarterback and then expect him to keep continuing what he has been doing. Like that's tough. That's a tough sell for me.
Big time. I mean, well, it'll be interesting to see how it develops because, man, depending on how much time he ends up missing, if Kirk is playing pretty bad during that stretch, there's already been the clamoring for the fan base, right? And people are ready. We get tired. People are so tired of the same thing over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I could see that bit getting sketchy,
All right, here's a couple other ones that I really like to maybe explore, go to acquire. One of them coming off a bad game, one of them coming off a very good game. So different ends of the spectrum here.
Buy
right?
high, buy low. What do we got?
Jordan Love at WoRP QB9 in WoRP per game. Still. Even if he doesn't do anything in the first half, which seems to be a theme. Now, his second half of this last game wasn't very good either as far as actually, being a good NFL quarterback. But, you saw the previous week he had a bad first half and then exploded in the second half, and that's what's really keeping his WoRP value up here. But through 5 weeks, man, still QB9 in WoRP per game. And that might be one where you go, Raiders, Monday night primetime, Jordan Love looked like a fraud. And I think one of the things I like to possibly buy in is Aaron Jones is coming back at some point, right? Like he's not going to be out the.
I hope so for my teams. I hope you're right.
That offense looks very, very good with Aaron Jones in there because Aaron Jones is a very, very dynamic and very good running back. He's got Christian Watson back. You saw him with the long catch on Monday night. But Jordan Love still might be a sneaky buy for me. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And I think that's one of those kind of like Russ where, he might cost a first, but you could probably also get by with, a couple seconds or, a second and another lesser quarterback. You might even get by with, after this bad week, selling the hopium of Daniel Jones and like a third to go get Jordan Love. Like somebody might look at that as a pretty lateral move. So Jordan Love, I would much rather buy into than a Daniel Jones at this point, though. What do you think?
I mean, relative to the two, I guess Love I could see. I think from a production standpoint this year, WoRP like production, he might be middle of the pack. Like I still, when I look at this line, speaking of looking at things, right? Sometimes there's certain numbers that like he is technically 9, but like when I look at WoRP per game, I mean he's no different than really Sam Howell right now, and that's honestly where I kind of view him as. Like I don't view him that much higher than Sam Howell personally. I don't think he has any level of attachment guaranteed to his future value. So if I can get him for Sam Howell prices, which I know you can't, then I'm in. But that's where I draw the line.
All right. How about one that just came off a blow-up game, though? Number 10,
Who?
Justin Fields.
Ooh, this one's tough, man. This is a tough one. Where are you at with Fields? I'm kind of curious this one with you, too.
We knew the Denver Broncos were a get-right game. right?
Everybody knew it, but he also got right for sure in that game.
He did. What he did to the Commanders was actually way more impressive to me, right?
Sure.
I don't think the Commanders are a horrible defense. I actually think their defensive line with Chase Young now back, fully healthy, Montez Sweat is balling out. We know the inside with Allen and Payne are like those are some dudes, right? So that defensive line versus Chicago's offensive line, which is one of their biggest weaknesses, didn't really seem to matter. And him and DJ Moore just exploded on those guys. Like absolutely exploded on them. I did see somebody on Twitter like try to come at me when I was like, "Oh, look at that second week of no Justin Fields hate or whatever." They're like, "Yeah, those passes were almost picked off." That's called ball placement, and that's putting it where only your receiver can get it. That's what you do when you're a good quarterback. So, shh, I'll give him the hush, the hush. Right?
Almost.
Not a single one of those was an almost pick. Every single one of them was right where it needed to be.
I almost won some championships last week. He almost did a lot of things, I mean, right?
Almost. But if he just had like an average game against Commanders and kind of went back to early season Justin Fields, I'd probably still be shitting my pants. But the fact that he tore them boys up in the worst possible way, like absolutely nuclear. Khalil Herbert loss is going to hurt a little bit, but maybe there was something to this Chase Claypool locker room cancer thing, right? Justin Fields looked pretty good at his first game without Chase Claypool.
I don't know if how much that has to play into it, but I tell you, the point you just made to me was the big one. Like he looked a lot better this last week than I was probably expecting. I expected him to look good in that game versus Denver, but he also did surpass what my expectations were as far as him playing well. So there's 2 weeks of that. He started off really slow last year. So I remember that, and I also think about how different this whole system is. He's being played in. And then as well, his top weapon does what? I mean, the chemistry there looked tremendous. And one of the reasons I think we were excited this year was DJ Moore coming over. He's a polarizing one, man, because personally, this only goes one of two ways, Mike. This is only going to go one of two ways with his value. Now, the production from him and where he ends up playing and all that, but like if he plays well enough to hold off them drafting a quarterback next year and they buy in and surround him with weapons and that narrative goes away, he's too athletic and he's too good for him not to be sky high in Dynasty. But if that's not the case and he
I wouldn't say
what's that? Yeah. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say I'm like ready, like as probably one of the Justin Fields truthers, like me and D-Bro still driving this bandwagon hand in hand. But I wouldn't say I'm ready to pay too liquid first for Justin Fields now.
No.
Okay, because you're a little bit burned, yes. But I will say where he's at just relative in market, he's in that range where he's a top 12 quarterback, right? In WoRP per game showing it, he comes in at number 10. You can go look at antiquated points per game if you want, whatever the metric is. But Justin Fields does have that elite like QB1 overall potential on the week, every single week. I would say this. He's back in that territory of like, for most people, back end QB1, right?
Yeah.
11, 12 dynasty ranks. Like you want to feel good, but you're still cautious. I think that's the prime spot to go and flip assets that aren't really difference makers and just hold a shit ton of dynasty value for no apparent reason, even though there's no production, right? It's all youth. It's all hype.
Right.
Garrett Wilson would be one.
Yeah.
That would be, listen, I'm going to play the scarcity of the quarterback market and what it means to me versus holding on to an asset like Garrett Wilson. If you have a Jaxon Smith-Njigba that you wanted to get off, right? As much as I love Devon Achane, now with this news, if that's still a possible flip, right? A running back for a quarterback, even a back-end QB1 type, those are the kind of moves you go out. Like, he's right in that range with Kenneth Walkers of the world, Travis Etienne. I'm going with the quarterback.
Sure.
Like, I'm taking the gamble on Justin Fields before I'm taking the gamble on those guys.
I'm with you. I think if I could send away non-quarterbacks and get him, like that would be a great way to probably like hedge your bet a little bit and also just play the quarterback position up. I think with Justin Fields, part of the problem when you talk about buying in for 2 firsts, why I won't do it is he's already proven how many times there's no value retention with him. Like that's even if your bet wins with him, you don't have a safe fall back, right? Like it's almost like you're on this rope And you know if you take a wrong step, there's nothing below you. Like, that's the problem with Fields is 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was two weeks ago and change. People are panic. I'm talking pandemonium, Mike. Get to any first. I don't give a shit if it's going to be 112 locked in. Just take that first. Man, what? If that's his liquid retention, Mike, I don't want to buy two. I don't ever want to buy for 2 first. That's the problem with Fields, to the point of, would I like to buy him? Yes. What is the cost? If someone's going to let me send any first, I'll. There's not a league I won't do it in, even if I'm going to be a tanking team.
And I'll give an honorable mention here to 2 guys, right?
Love it.
Right, just 2 guys, maybe possibly explore, and one of them, don't lose your shit because I said his name, but Sam Howell, you brought him up earlier.
Love it.
And Brock Purdy. Literally both those dudes right back to back in WoRP per game. So before you go like doing the victory laps that you got Mike to admit about Brock Purdy, he's still QB 14 in WoRP per game, even after last week's blow up. So just pump the brakes here, boys. Just pump them a little bit. But
where are you at with Purdy and with Howell? Where are you at with Purdy and with Howell?
Very solid QB2s. Very solid QB2s that you could get, I think Howell would probably be the one that I would actually actively target now, because even if I remove Brock Purdy's name and I replaced him with the guy right below it, Joshua Dobbs, Howell is the cheaper, the more acquirable one. Like, it's weird to say too, but he's more on the level with like a Josh Dobbs as far as acquiring him. Even though he's got some fanboys out there, Josh Dobbs probably does not, but he's making them as they come. I would say people are still a little bit overinflated on Brock Purdy, right? Like, I see now he's keep trade cuts like Dynasty quarterback 12. Like, he's a QB1 in Dynasty value. So it's going to be a tougher buy. And if I got to buy into that range, kind of like you were talking about with some of these other guys, maybe you just go down to the cheapest option. Who's got Sam Howell? Can I pick him up? Because reasonably the outcomes for both of them are probably the same. Now, I will say, though, Brock Purdy's job security is probably a lot better than Sam Howell's. Long term, if you want.
Question. I think the thing about Sam Howell, he's interesting to me, Mike, because he gets into that, probably in that Baker range, where it's like the difference with him and Baker, though, is people can still tell themselves a story, even if it's not a likely one, where he's good enough to where he can still be a team's franchise quarterback, or that they're not going to get rid of him. He has more of this youth baked in, right? Like we do in Dynasty. With Baker, this is this cast-off character now, right? So it's the same kind of principle for me with those two. But to the point you're making, I think Howell can be had for less than a first. And if you get me quarterbacks in this type of range, almost universally, I'm very interested in Superflex if I'm talking about a top 15 quarterback and it's not going to cost me a first.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's move on to the running backs here. So happens Shane was asking about it in the chat, but that's the next position we're going to go to.
Let's talk about
Adam, WoRP per game, man. Running backs. And I filtered this out by running backs who played 4 or 5 games, right? Like, I don't want Austin Eckler skewing the data off of 1 week. We haven't seen him since week 1. Aaron Jones, kind of the same thing. But actual running backs who've been playing this year, have 4 or 5 games under their belt, so we can get a reasonable assessment of who's good, who's not, at least in WoRP-wise. As much as I hate to admit it, right, and I project that this will change, man. Zach Moss is still coming in at RB4. Right? Like, is this – let me not get over my skis here in just saying, like, when JT gets ramped up because of the contract and the whole thing and the talent he has, Zach Moss is just going to die, right? Like, it's going to be over. Right? I made that mistake last week. Let me be a little bit more reasonable. Is Zach Moss – like, if I could get Zach Moss for a third-round pick right now, lineup, best ball, whatever, I'm doing it, right? And if it costs 2/3, Adam, I think I'm doing it. Because I see a lot of this, like, similarities to how I hated Jamal Williams all the time last year. And then by the time you're actually buying in on them, it's week 9, it's week 10, damn playoffs are already here. And it's like you didn't even get to experience the good parts of Jamal Williams because you just hated him that much for the entire season. So why not just listen? If somebody's going to let Zach Moss go for a third, or if somebody's going to let me have him for 2/3 on the right team if I got enough laying around, why not? Why not? Because this guy's balling out of his fucking mind.
That's fair. You bring up some fair points. I mean, well, okay, so let's backtrack. Last year with the Jamal Williams thing, right? By the time we bought in, the price had gone up. And I think now with Zach Moss, the question is that time already happened? Like, is he already a second-round pick?
Where the price has gone up?
Yeah.
I think there's still, with Jonathan Taylor actually coming back and signing, I think there's enough people out there being reasonable going like, how you getting a second for this dude?
I mean, I tend to agree, but what I mean by that is like not that a second-round pick is going to happen all the time, just that people are going to kind of tell you to kick rocks with thirds. Where back in like last year, it felt like the running backs that people didn't want to buy into, they're just here, get rid of these turds. I don't know if people are as into just selling Moss for a third, but I don't think he can sustain top 10. But at the same time, I don't know. What if this offense is just really efficient at running the football? What if he just carves 50% of the work from Jonathan Taylor? Or in that ballpark. Well, you got A-Rich is going to miss some time, but when he's back, you have a very efficient running offense. So I think probably at most points, if you could buy for a third, I'm in. 2/3, I'm in. If I have him, he's probably a hold, unless I can get, something that I just shouldn't be able to get back in the trade.
I get you. How about the guy right after him, Kyren Williams? Now, this might be a perfect time to go by because he just played the Eagles defense.
I was going to say.
Undoubtedly, they shut another running back down. Like, who knew?
Yep.
Jordan Davis. He's kind of a big man. That's what he does. Shut running backs down and kills Buffett.
I like Kyren quite a bit, but should have seen that a slow week was coming versus Philly last week. Although relative to what the whole NFL has done this year against the Eagles defense, he didn't do that bad, really.
Correct, right. But he comes in at RB5 still in WoRP per game. Yeah. I mean, this is true WoRP too. I'm not even looking at a WoRP on whether you would have started the guy, so it doesn't discount, the weeks you wouldn't have started him. But Kyren Williams, I still think he's a pretty good buy.
I do too.
What are we talking? Still second and third?
Yeah, I'm in for a second and third. I mean, I don't think I'll do 2 seconds just because I think you have too many. There's too much cost opportunity there. You got 2 chances to buy something really nice a lot of times, Or you attach a third piece to those 2 seconds, and now you got 2 really nice pieces as opposed to just Kyren. So, yeah, I would do a second, and I'd probably do a third as well, or a third-type player.
Well, I think if I was going to do 2 seconds at him, I'm kind of with you. As much as I talk about this guy just being a jag, you need to go after fantasy points and usage, and that's David Montgomery, the guy literally right below Kyren. That would be a dude I would throw 2 seconds at.
It's so crazy with Monty, man. This dude has looked really good in this offense. I know we talk stuff about Montgomery's not that talented. He's just a jag.
Jamal Williams plus, baby. Jamal Williams plus.
I think sometimes we do a little disservice to him. I don't think he's not talented. I just don't think he's an elite or a high-end level talent relative to the NFL. This guy has proven workhorse ability, and he's also show that he can take massive workloads and stay relatively healthy. This offense is a good offense to have a running back in, man. I know Detroit fans, if you're out there, you probably can't believe you're saying this to yourself. I want pieces of this Detroit offense. Sam LaPorta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, David Montgomery, the big 3 that I'm really interested in. Gibbs, I still am holding out hope for long term, but I'll be honest with you about this one too, Mike, with Gibbs. I know he's not the person we're talking about here, but Campbell's track record, combined with the fact that I don't really want to start or continue to carry value on my team that's long-term running back plays. You guys are probably going to all think I'm the Gibbs hater, but it's just the way I'm starting to approach and change views in Dynasty. I ain't got time for this Gibbs thing, man. When it happens, I'm sure it will, and when it does happen, I'll probably be sad. But I would rather be that than continuing to hold first plus value on my team when that position, the value I have there needs to be scoring me points. So that's where to the David Montgomery point, where I'm very in on him for 2 seconds.
All right. How about a guy you and I have loved, DeAndre Swift? It's like everything that I ever thought was going to happen when the Eagles traded for DeAndre Swift is coming true.
What a good segue from Gibbs, right?
I would, Adam, I'd definitely buy DeAndre Swift for a first. Like, and we're almost far enough along in the lineup season where even in lineup leagues, I might just go, fuck it. Let's push this in right now. I need it. He's catching passes, man, from Jalen Hurts, who people were like, he ain't gonna throw to the running back. DeAndre Swift's like, you never had me. Well, Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell.
You know what's kind of funny about that though? Like, I was watching some stuff on his ever since his big blow up game when Gainwell was sitting, right? There's been like a lot of clips and stuff coming up, you know, DeVonta Smith, Jalen Hurts. Like this team, they really believe and love this kid. Like they're buying into the DeAndre Swift thing, and I think this is a piece that it's very hard to quantify or tell yourself like how much it plays importance in fantasy. But the truth is, like, it feels like just the fact that Jalen Hurts is throwing the football to him, I think he's probably earning it. But at the same time, I think Jalen Hurts is a little more mindful of like, hey, maybe I just got to get the ball to Swift here. And maybe this is a spot now that I paid and I don't want to have to always run. Maybe I just get the ball to him real quick and go let him do his thing. You know, I'm going to get the brotherly shove at some point anyway.
Outside of week 1, I mean, these are the touch counts, right? 31, which we never thought we'd ever see.
Well, the last time we saw that, Mike, he got hurt. That's the only thing that worried me.
17, 18, 23. Are you going to tell me he's somewhere between an 18 and 20 touch running back with his talent and explosiveness and his ability in the passing, which he's getting targets at him, like 3, 2, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
Like the targets are going up here in the last couple of weeks. 10 targets over 2 weeks. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you were going to tell me that these are the touches and the targets are actually coming, like it's not just we're going to run them up against Minnesota's defense 28 because they can't stop a wet fart. He's actually going to get passing work, be split out wide. Like, this is the DeAndre Swift I'm getting in this Eagles offense with the amount of talent and the amount of red zone trips they're going to make. As much as it sucks to see him get down to the 1 yard line and then they just push Hurts' ass in, you know, good if you're a Hurts owner, horrible if you're a DeAndre Swift owner. But
yep.
As much as that hurts, like the fantasy usage is still very, very good for DeAndre Swift. So I think a first is like where I'm at, and it might not even cost that because people are going to be like, oh, he's going to get hurt again. Like it's coming.
Yeah, no, I'm with you though. The weird part, like that last point you made, was what I was going to get to, and that's like, it's the weird thing. If you were to tell me, you know, a running back's going to get 18 to 20 looks a game in Philly's offense, I mean, before the year, people are just, I mean, they're going crazy. This guy's going to have double-digit touchdowns. And that game he went off, man, right? On primetime, it's like they kept getting down there, and you're like, oh, yeah, he ain't getting this carry. He's not going to get a lot of carries inside the, you know, 2 or 3. But so that would be the one thing that, like, it probably slightly lowered ceiling. But at the same time, if you're telling me that many touches in an offense this good, and he's catching some passes, I don't know if it quite makes up for the ceiling of it, but I think DeAndre Swift now, while he's playing, has a high ceiling potential in any given week because he can take a long run or a long pass to the house. But he also has maybe one of the best floors in fantasy this year, which is that's the crazy part. Like, I wanted to word it that way because I don't think anybody ever thought ever again we would see DeAndre Swift as possibly one of the best floors in a weekly basis.
I would do this move straight up, but I would imagine there's still enough people out there that are still dick riding Tony Pollard. So, like, if you could get DeAndre Swift in any kind of plus for Tony Pollard, like, I'm telling you, I would do this shit straight up, like everywhere. But I would get off of Tony Pollard for DeAndre Swift too. That'd be like one of those micro moves you make as a contender where you get that much better, safer floor. And if we're going to talk injury risk, the way the Tony Pollard's been being used, holy Santa Claus shit. Like, I feel bad for this guy.
It was one of the things I started looking at pretty early, man. It was, I don't know, what was that, week 3, I think, when I'm like, dude, if this is going to continue. Like, people got to remember, too, one last point on that Pollard point you just made is that he's getting all these carries, and it is, I'm still calling this September. Like, the first week in October is like, this is September football, right? Nice weather, early in the year, bodies aren't beat up. Wait till he's playing, not in Dallas, some of these games. He's playing Philly, he's playing New York. It's freezing cold out there. He's been used and abused all year, getting like, dude, that's not a good recipe, I don't think, for a running back of his stature. But I'm not banking on him getting hurt. It's just the point of that's an alarming, like it raises my eyebrows when you see one running back who's never had that type of volume get it and also not look as efficient this early in the year too. It'd be one thing if he got that volume and just going crazy, but he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like Tony Pollard from last year with all that volume.
Here's a couple guys I'll lump together also with DeAndre Swift that I kind of like, especially their usage and their WoRP so far on the season. Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, generally in that range as well.
Yeah.
Like both of them. Travis Etienne's usage has been ridiculously eye-opening, and kind of the same thing in Seattle. Like, Zach Charbonnet's going to kill Kenneth Walker, and all of a sudden it's like, nah, dude's still playing 70% of the snaps. Like, he's still the guy.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, with Swift, real quick, where do you have him in like, where do you think he can kind of stay in the WoRP discussion?
I definitely think he's going to be in that top 10 discussion just because of how good that offense is. Like, he's going to stay in there. I imagine you're probably going to have another spike week or two like coming up here shortly. Yeah, like at some point where Philly is, they could just be absolutely just steamrolling some poor defensive line where it's like, we don't need to throw the football. We don't. It's kind of like that Minnesota game. Like, they're going to have some of these matchups coming up against with some beat up teams. You got the Commanders game, we just saw that, and they always play us tough. But like the Giants coming up, you just saw Dallas get fucking abused by a good offense. So it's gonna happen at some point. And you're gonna be like, there's another walking 30 burger from DeAndre Swift. So
yeah,
WoRP wise, like, he's got a really nice floor, and you probably have that like RB like 15, 16 floor where you're like, okay, that was usable. But he's also gonna have that RB1 overall week where you go, wish I would have had him.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like you. We'd be playing on a Thursday night, and all of a sudden you wake up Friday and you go, well, this week's lost.
Oh, no. What happened? Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. Sorry, what was the next running back you were talking about?
The next two, Travis Etienne
and Kenneth Walker. So, Etienne especially, like, the way that Tank Bigsby's been relegated to nothing in this offense, like, I did not expect that. Now, I would have listened if you said, like, I still think Etienne's going to maintain the 1A role. But, like, if you would have told me Tank's going to be nothing in this offense, there's nothing you could have done to convince me that all offseason. Because they used high enough draft capital, good enough profile for me. So that was my concern with Etienne. Like, week to week, like if he were to miss a week and Tank looked good, maybe that role could change. But like what I'm looking at right now, and not really trying to bake injuries too much into my process, I really like Etienne's role this year. Now, the problem and difference with him is he kind of has this higher valued name that probably has him off of my target list, but like I like him quite a bit, this year. I think the role he has in a Jacksonville offense that doesn't have, the DeAndre Swift thing where Trevor Lawrence is going to run 100 touchdowns. Travis Etienne, very, very interesting to me. Kenneth Walker's doing kind of the same thing, which is what interesting. Man,
yeah, there's corollary.
They're
between
very
the
similar,
two. Like,
right?
I think both offenses are getting better. Now, reminder that Seattle's been without their two offensive tackles for pretty much the entire season, it has felt like. Like, at some point, that offensive line's going to get healthier. Just looking at Kenneth Walker, he's got the 37th ranking in run block rating Like, that's how bad the offensive line's been for him, and it still hasn't mattered. Still a top WoRP option at the running back position. Number 1 in evaded tackles, and he's like, I think he's number 4 or number 6 in breakaway runs. Like, something we know Kenneth Walker does. And he's been doing this without actually catching a whole lot of passes, which is always kind of the knock against Kenneth Walker, but he has the ability. He's a decent enough pass catcher. I just think with Jacksonville and Seattle, both of them, yes, why both of these guys carry more sexy dynasty value. Adam, it's also a bet I want to make on because I believe both offenses are starting to ramp up where they're starting to get into that elite territory, like back to what we expected from them. And if that's the case, both offenses pretty much all year, while these guys have been top WoRP producers at the running back positions, I'm ready, right? If this was the low, I can't wait to see.
Yeah. The high is going to be a lot different, man. I do think, though, like when I look, these are guys that I think have higher end WoRP upside potential in their respective offenses, but both of their cost of acquisition, like that's my only hesitation with them. If I don't have them and I want exposure, like I don't know how. It's very hard to go about getting those guys because people that have them, unless they're in a total rebuild, probably don't want to lose those points. And if they're willing to, what's it going to cost to prime away? So, like, it's one of those where I have a good amount of exposure to both, and I'm kind of just comfortable there. But if I didn't, like, buying running backs in this range typically now for me in Dynasty is just it's kind of a no-no unless I'm, like, really just sitting on a bunch of picks that I can, be a little careless, or I have, league mates that are just completely devoid of, like, valuing the running back position, and I can maybe have them cheap.
Very, very, very understandable here. Most of the other running backs I was looking at, like, they kind of just gross me out. Feels like a dead zone running back. Some ones that stood out to me, though, Jaleel McLaughlin. Like, we obviously know we made a short. Well, we didn't make one. Christian made a short making fun of you for the Jaleel McLaughlin thing. And he had a very good week. But he's in the upper half of shitter running backs right, already in WoRP, and it's really only been 2 weeks that I can think of. So that might be one that you go out and try to get for cheap. I know a lot of people are, we got asked a question, I think, in the YouTube comments, like, do we sell Jaleel McLaughlin for any second? Like, yes, by all means, if you can get a second for him, go for it. Obviously, I wouldn't pay a second, but third-round pick for Jaleel? Like, I kind of like what I've seen from this guy. That's a nice speculative buy. Like, I think I'd be able to.
Yeah, third's fine. I think my only hesitation with it is he looks good. He looks very good. Like, the efficiency these last 2 weeks has been insane, though. 10 yards a carry, 7 yards a carry. I don't have a problem with buying him for a third. My only thing is with some of these, like, thirds and seconds, not that this is a bad buy, but that I really do believe that as the season's going to carry on, like, if I have a nice little stash of those, you're going to see more and more attrition, man. And it's going to be to the point where, like, if you have those extra picks laying around, week 9, week 10, week 11, there's going to be clear and utter starts where it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about starting McLaughlin. It's like, no, Pollard's going to miss out. I want Rico Dowdle. Okay, well, I have what I need to buy him, or whoever the player is. I'm just giving you a speculative one. But McLaughlin has looked very good. He's looked very explosive, which, I mean, coming out of Notre Dame College and Youngstown State, Ohio kid, man. I was not expecting that, dude.
Let's go, man. And here's something really cool. This is why I love our WoRP tool. I can filter it by last 3 weeks too at the running back position. So if you want to kind of spot a little hot trends, okay, here's some names to keep in mind. Alvin Kamara, obviously only 2 games out of that 3, but WoRP per game a nice solid 0.1. So Kamara's been balling in his 2 games back. Here's one that's been crusty and been disappointing all year, especially considering what he did last year. Josh Jacobs, right? You want to go out and get him. RB9 in WoRP per game over the last 3 weeks. Isaiah Pacheco, RB10. Like, Pacheco been running very hard and angry. Like, that might be a sneaky running back buy too if you're looking for something. I think a second.
Yeah, man. I think that's a good call because like I think almost in a way, the way the year started off, if you had Pacheco, you're nervous. You're like, is this really a 3-way timeshare?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? This is the worst thing for fantasy. But now it started to feel like he's earning more of the role we thought he was going to have week 1. And, there's probably owners out there that are kind of just worried, what they did to CEH, the usage they saw early. It's like you might be able to get him for a reasonable price. And he's a guy where I've never really been worried about what I've seen on the field. Like he's always looked like he runs hard. He looks good when he's in space. But, there's the problem with him. That's why if I can buy him cheap like you're talking, I'm very in. The problem with buying him is you should know there's no floor. Like if he gets hurt, if something happens, it's the whole value could go poof. Magic trick, it's all gone.
Yeah, and RB13 over the last 3 weeks in WoRP per game, Jaleel McLaughlin.
There he is, man.
Let's go.
You can't hate on it, man. The other crazy part is who would have thought that Javonte would be playing this whole time, and then
right.
It'd be not Samaje P. I heard all this Samaje P. stuff. What?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Yeah, no thanks.
Where is he on this WoRP list?
All right,
I couldn't find him.
Wide receivers for me, Adam. I'm gonna, a lot of these. I mean, we talk ad nauseum about Puka. Puka's been awesome. Number 3 in WoRP per game. Like, he's awesome. Okay, but Mike Evans, Adam Thielen. How about some old crusties? Probably 2 very different costs. Like I don't know if Mike Evans costs a first, Adam. I wouldn't venture to say that he does. But it's probably pretty close, right? People still really like some Mike Evans. I can definitely tell you Adam Thielen does not cost a first, and he might not even cost a second. Like he might not even take that. I think I saw Koopa traded his ass away for like a third and a bag of chips or something. I don't remember what the hell it was, but I was like, what? Koopa, come holler at your boy next time.
In best ball, I'm very interested in that price. Mike, I think I'm going to tell you what I think about Mike Evans first. So, Mike Evans to me, this is one of the more I don't even know. It's not contentious, isn't the right word. Frustrating is still not even the right word, but along those things where if you talked about, let's say, 95% of people in fantasy football and dynasty fantasy football, they're going to fall into this range of bucket, which is someone will buy for a second, right? Like there's so many people will buy player X for a second at any given week. Marvin Mims comes off of a great week. People are sending seconds in every one of your leagues for Marvin Mims. I just drafted him there. I don't want this second right now, but people are willing to spend seconds. But when it gets to the first, you literally get rid of probably 95% of people in Dynasty. Like 95% of fantasy players, like the players on people's teams, people aren't going to send a first for. I think that's exactly where Mike Evans falls, which is where, like, when you talk about just valuing players in draft pick ranges, that's where, like, that type of one is so hard because Mike Evans right now he's smashing on a contender. I mean, him playing as well as he is part of where I have to be like, all right, I was wrong. Baker's, if he's going to have the role and they're looking like this, and Mike Evans is playing, like a little bit slower version of his old self, you got to be in. And So for him, like if I could buy for a second in a gross receiver or if I can throw something else into that, couldn't be in quicker on a contender. But to your point, when he gets to a first round range, there's no way. Like even on my strong contenders in best ball, I wouldn't do that right now. I wouldn't. I don't even know if I would do it way later, but maybe I would do it way later.
Right. If I was going to do it in best ball or lineup, I think probably the best way to do it, like you said, you rule out 95% of the other buyers by just going to a first, right? And not a lot of people are just going to let them go for a second. And then you got to try to talk them into a second plus this other piece that you want to throw in, and like it's reasonable for them. And, that's not always the case. So one of the moves I like to do too is I will go to the first Adam, like Mike Evans for the first, but not straight up. I'm attaching something else coming back with Mike Evans.
I like that.
Kyron Williams, Jerome Ford, Jaleel McLaughlin, Adam Thielen. if you got it, right? Like, give me old man Thielen. Or you got Mike Evans and Keenan Allen. Here, take 1 first for both of them. Right? Let me just split this up. Like, you can look and see how shiny that first is that you got for some 30-year-old wide receivers, and I'm just going to take the WoRP and I'm going to plug this dude into my wide receiver 2. I'm plugging Mike Evans into wide receiver 3, and here we go. We're off and running. But I think that's the other way to do it, is you attach that first, because all of a sudden that looks pretty appealing and pretty sexy. Like a 24 first. Got him. I got off these dudes for a first. You get off them for a couple seconds and some juice pieces, nobody gives a shit. Like, okay. Adam didn't even care. He put him
out here muted, man. That's that's how much I don't want to send a first for Mike Evans. Like, just mute me while I scream. No, I think that, you know, with the league you're in, Mike, is a very good point. So, like, in a best ball league, if I needed to do this, and I'm like, you know what, man, if you can give me, if you're gonna throw in Jaleel McLaughlin, you're gonna throw, can you get me to the first price? Like, can I give you this first and you give me 3 players? All right, we're talking. Like, I'll send you my first right now. But in lineup leagues, even, man, I still might pass. Just because it would have to be the way I construct my team in lineup is my eyes have been a lot more open this year, as far as, like, even if I'm winning the value side of that, I want to have my team formed and constructed in a certain way. And, like, Mike Evans, to me, with what I have to trade away now, like, when I lose my liquidity in lineup, I want to have more pieces that I'm sending. Like, when I send away my first, the piece that I get back, I want to know that there's enough that he's putting himself into that 5%, because now I can flip him like he is a pick, right? Because if he's not, he could be a dead asset with either, you know, poor play, injury, whatever the case might be. So, but in best ball, I'm 100% with you, man. Like, all right, we're gonna play this game, back and forth counters. You want my first? Here's what I'll do, and if you'll give me these 3 pieces, you can have it.
How about another ATM money move? The OG, Jacoby Myers. Boy's
Looking
just
good, man. Looking good.
Boy's good. Not a first, though? I would say no.
Man, he's the.
Do you think
it's the same
do you
thing?
Think acquiring Jacoby, is he easier to acquire than Mike Evans?
I think he was.
Because he's never had the name cash.
I think he was. I don't know if right now he is.
Or ATM's money moves paying off that much.
Like, I also, man, this guy, outside of 1 week, right, has looked like every bit of a stable floor. But then you also see there's weeks he scores touchdowns, and, like, he's a lot more than a floor play. So even in lineup, that's a shallow lineup. He's very much a buy for me. So, he's going to fall into a lot of the same categories, though, I just brought up, because I don't want to. I still, as much as I love him, don't want to send a first for him in lineup leagues, man. You know, it's just, it's not the way you want to construct your team, personally, doing it that way. But I will say there's also upside with what could happen later in the year for him, too. But right now, I think he's a couple seconds. I would do a couple seconds even for Jacoby Myers, Mike. That's how much I feel strongly with him.
How about the guy right behind him? Talk about gross. Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds, baby.
This is a guy that I do think, especially in best ball, you should probably go out.
Call him Detroit Jacoby Myers?
Yeah.
Detroit Lions could Jacoby Myers?
Remember what I was talking about with DeAndre Swift? It's funny because Swift left the Lions, right? Reynolds and Goff have been playing together on multiple teams for a while, and they just have a chemistry, man. Like, that in best ball is probably one of the things it doesn't happen often. They don't have to play for the quarterback, but when I see a situation where there's usage, the name's low, and it's looking good as far as snaps go, like, these are the type of buys that I think you have to pounce on everywhere in your league. Like, you should almost, when you see someone like Josh Reynolds, I don't care how infrequently it is, but when you do, like, spam your leagues. Literally every single league that you don't have Josh Reynolds should get an offer out there. Just because you might get a counterback, you might get an accept. Get your exposure up to these guys because they don't cost shit.
Here's a fun fact. WoRP per game. Okay. Both have played 4 games. Both are on the same team. 0.11 WoRP per game. Number 11. Number 11 for Josh Reynolds. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 15.
Wow.
Reynolds. like, who would have thought that shit was ever going to happen?
What's crazy is, Josh Reynolds probably is going to be one of these guys in the lineup that starts making managers really like question, what do I do? Like he's kind of making a case to make you want to put him in your lineup, but there's people that just won't do it. Or they're going to be thinking about doing it but can't pull the trigger.
What else do we need to do for Brandon Aiyuk? Like, this is an alpha, man. This is a wide receiver 1, locked and loaded.
I've done everything I could.
You guys like Brock Purdy, you should be loving Brandon Aiyuk. I don't understand the correlation of not loving Brandon Aiyuk with all the Brock Purdy hate that I get back. Like, people being like, Mike, admit he's a really good quarterback. Well, you admit Brandon Aiyuk.
I can tell you what is all right. Let's have it out. Let's see where you're at. Miles to feed in the offense. Christian McCaffrey's going to get his one healthy. George Kittle just showed you, like, there's no limit on the blow-up George Kittle weeks, right? As much as he was terrible all year. Like, those are always in play.
Probably not as frequent as we remember, but it could still happen. George Kittle still booms with the best of them.
Yeah,
he's Tyler Lockett of the tight ends, baby.
There you go. I like that. I'll let you coin that right here.
Tyler Lockett
like
of the
that,
tight
man.
ends.
The shitcoin millionaire, man. He just coined it, the Tyler Lockett of tight ends. I love that. That has to get into the name of the show somehow.
Tyler Lockett of tight ends.
All right, but then you have but I think now really, Mike, the problem is with the fact that Kittle. I guess the one thing with Kittle is we have seen his floor probably lower than people thought. All right, so that does open up things. However, Brandon Aiyuk, when he's had his down game or injured game, that's when you get a Debo game. And vice versa. And I think that is the problem with Brandon Aiyuk is that value-wise, people are not going to see him as alpha because they're still going to buy into Debo's old stuff. They're still going to say there's other mouths to feed. So with 4 mouths to feed in an offense that you hate the quarterback, other people love him, but the reality is how high can you value everyone being an alpha when can you have 4 alphas? Like that's – and then where are you at with Debo? Because I know I'm skipping ahead here. He's down lower there, but like where are you at with him? And what do you how do you value Aiyuk in the mix is really the question. I think the problem people have, a conundrum.
I value Chris McCaffrey very high. I value Brandon Aiyuk as a wide receiver 1. I value Debo Samuel as a very good wide receiver 2. George Kittle, I mean, it's the tight end landscape. So if you put him as a top 5 tight end, it's like no one gives a shit. You know what I mean? Like, he can boom. George Kittle's awesome. He went to Iowa. He's staring at me right now behind me.
Love it.
He's good. Okay, but
the boy good.
Like, top 5 tight end just don't mean anything, and he can boom. But he's not the elite of the elite tight ends anymore. Like, that's probably past. He's probably the one that suffers the most in this offense. But outside of those guys, Adam, it's a consolidated offense. I know Jordan Mason got some run this last game, but that's because they were blowing the Cowboys out early. Early. He got some run. He had like a couple Jawan Jennings catches, but that's the best you're going to get, right? None of these dudes are coming out of nowhere, so it's these 4 guys, and it's always going to be these 4 guys. And if one of them's out, one of them's banged up, or one of them has a down week, that means the other ones are getting picked up. And they're exploding. So when you look at the totality of the season, especially for Brandon Aiyuk, not only is he, WoRP per game, a top wide receiver option, right? A wide receiver 1. Not only does he score that in points per game, but you look at some of the metrics like his target share, he's in the top 12. Like, he has this ability in him where he has a very high floor, very consistent floor, and a very dynamic offense that's consolidated. Although we look at it and go, all these mouths to feed, but, if it's only 4 guys and it's literally none of the other pieces, we're not throwing to tight end 2s and 3s, and you got to worry about fucking Ross Dwelly scoring fantasy points, like we have to worry about in some other offenses. Doesn't really matter. It's kind of like Miami, right? Like Braxton Berrios can have some moments, All right, but this offense runs through Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane when he's healthy. And, now that he's out, we can throw in that it's probably going to be, a little Jeff Wilson or whatever. But you're not worried about Durham Smythe. You don't give a shit about Cedric Wilson. Like, those guys are ancillary. Julian Hill, now that I actually know his first name.
There we go.
You don't care. You don't care because it goes to those guys and those guys.
Now, I like the point. I love the points you made, actually. And I think not that I don't think people value any – I think the stopping point is that people they absolutely don't care about option 5 in this offense unless it's a deep best ball league and you're like, oh, maybe Aiyuk's missing time or Debo's missing time. You're looking to add a piece on waivers or something. But I think the problem is people still view it as like, and I don't know if this is the correct way that it should be viewed because I'm going to use 2 of his games. They played 5, he's played 4, right? He exits early in week 2, and in week 4, he didn't exit early, but the offense kind of did. They didn't have to do anything, right? So, those weeks though, I think where people's hesitation is because there's so many mouths to feed. He doesn't actually feel like a very high floor play, and you're gonna look at some of the stats probably if you haven't watched the games and see, 3 for 43, 4 for 58, and you're gonna think like. His name cachet isn't the greatest because he's been up and down his whole time, and people are going to think like his floor play is just kind of meh because it could be a Debo week, it could be a Kittle week, it could be a Christian McCaffrey week, and I think it's starting to feel like this is how short people's attention spans or just their moment in time they want to live in. That blow up game from week 1 feels like an eternity ago. They don't look at his booms as often as a lot of the other players in Dynasty. So I think that is where the community's hesitation comes from. I'm not there. You already know where my Aiyuk love comes from. I'm kind of speaking to I think where because Mike, I tell you what, I've done this Brandon Aiyuk saga for years now, as you have with everyone, and I've heard the pushback, and it hasn't really changed, even when his play has. So there it is for you. It's all laid out. That's why he is an alpha, though. Damn it, he's an alpha.
Easily send it first at this point. Easily.
He's now to me now the interesting and weird. See, this is the weird part about Dynasty that I'm starting to have to almost keep my eye one eye open on. His name cachet is the only reason that there should even be any hesitation. Because for me, he's now solidified himself as a table into the receivers that you're getting a elite receiver or at least the top 12 Dynasty receiver in my mind. For a first, I'm sending that. I'm good, but. If this guy got hurt and Debo plays well, and you could just see the floor, the value floor for him, the retention doesn't exist like it does for a lot of other people you might be able to buy. But I'm with you, dude. A first, unless I'm tanking, I'm pretty much willing to send a first for Aiyuk. Just done. Here you go.
Right. Let me just look at the last 3 games, right? So see if we can find any value buys. And one of them I've been talking about for a while, it feels like on start sit, Hollywood Brown. Wide receiver 15 over the last 3 games in WoRP per game. Dude's getting fed 10 targets a game. There's nobody else, man. Michael Wilson had a week, and then he didn't do anything. Rondell Moore is, never been what we all wanted Rondell Moore to be.
He's exactly what we wanted
for Zay Flowers.
He's exactly what we thought he would be, and that's a gadgety receiver, and we just thought his value would be good, and it just isn't. Yeah, Hollywood's a good one.
Hollywood, Christian Kirk, another one in that range of wide receiver. Christian Kirk has been balling, even if Calvin really does stuff like he did this last week. Still Christian Kirk. That's a guy I really want. Perennial underrated Amari Cooper. Wide receiver 19. Don't matter if he's got a groin or Deshaun Watson's throwing dirt balls. Amari Cooper still goes out there and balls. So you want to go get yourself some Amari Cooper. How about some guys that are farther down the list that sneaky? And this one's always hesitant. It felt like it this way last year. Last 3 weeks, man. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 21. Heavily involved.
Just made him a hologram, man.
Stay healthy.
Made him a hologram. Just made him a hologram. All right. So
he's done.
here's honestly for me with Curtis Samuel, and we jokingly say if we call you a best ball receiver, that means you're trash, right? That's not actually. I think the distinction for me, like if you're trash, like you're not an anything receiver. You're not playing, okay? But the distinction for me really, and why like Samuel would be, is okay. So let's think lineup for a second, and then I'm going to try to like define the difference. I think Curtis Samuel's a perfect, like almost the perfect example of like the threshold and where the line needs to be drawn hard. So Curtis Samuel's getting a lot of run. He's getting sneaky as hell production. Like in best ball, those are guys that you can add really cheap that give you higher floors, especially like as you get longer starting lineups. So you have some of these start 9 best ball leagues maybe, right? You may not have – you don't want Curtis Samuel probably sneaking in there very often. But if you have a start 12, a start 13, those Curtis Samuel, like that is huge to get guys like him for close to nothing. And the reason is – he does have injury concern. He has absolutely zero, like long-term dynasty value. Nobody gives a shit, even now when he's producing. Like it's over for him as far as dynasty value is ever going to be.
Yeah.
But so in lineup, I mean, I'd add him off the waiver wire, but like that's it. That's all it would be. I'm not going to send any type of liquid capital for this guy. I'm not going to include him in my threshold receivers. In best ball, though, the big difference is he still is running a lot of routes. He's actually being pretty heavily utilized given, his cost. And that's the distinction. If it's a guy that's getting a lot of run and has the ability to we've seen Curtis Samuel have, I'm not sure if we've seen him have a true spike week, but we've seen him have plenty of top 12 weeks, right? Like
right.
Best ball, highly interested, lineup, pass.
Pass. All right. Lastly, we'll finish it off with the tight ends because most of these dudes are gross as shit. Right, tight end position is a dumpster fire. But 2 names I want to throw out there that dynasty value once upon a time might have had something, but as of late, nobody really gave a shit about these guys. One of them, Eric's been talking nonstop on the waiver wire show about, and that's Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas, man. Coming in here at tight end 7. Adam, tight end 7 in WAR per game.
Listen, he's been looking good. Let's just say the whole Commanders team outside of Antonio Gibson's getting holograms. They've been made this week, so it's real for Gibby, man. Everybody's getting run but him. But no, Thomas is like, if you're gonna do the WoRP tight end approach in lineup leagues. Like in best ball leagues, he should have already been a part of it. Like you should already have included him in your construction of 4 to 8 tight ends, depending on how many roster spots you have and how many starters you got, right? Whatever your construction needs to be. But in lineup leagues, I think like with the WoRP thing going on, sheesh, man. Like if you let me tell you exactly how. I didn't do it for him, but I got another tight end, and I think this is the way that I've been really implementing. Speaking of the WoRP, I think this is a great segue into tight ends here. So if you are going to take the WoRP life, right? They got the ball is life, WoRP is life. Like if you're going to really live this thing, right?
Yep. You're
going to have this, like I think the human element of having the WoRP tight end approach, it's like living paycheck to paycheck in that position. I feel like it makes people uneasy because it's just so nothing value there. And when you go to start someone, you're like, I'm really starting him for the rest of the year. Like people don't like to live like that, really. You know what I mean? I'm not saying there's people that don't live like that, but they don't like living like that, right? They would much rather have money in their account. They just don't make enough, or they don't know how to manage it, whatever the case may be. But what I've noticed is, on some of these teams that I have in lineup, cleared out a lot of these tight ends. Now, I think one thing, I actually wish we had Cooper on this week. I'm curious his evaluation of this statement. But what I'm kind of looking to do, because there's the schools of thought is basically you're looking to buy really cheap or not at all. Like you're just looking to just basically sell everything all the time and just keep throwing trash at it. But what I'm looking at is there's a lot of teams out there that have 5-6 tight ends. And they're never going to start Logan Thomas. And they're also never getting offers for Logan Thomas. Until I'm sitting there like, you know what? Maybe you should have an offer for Logan Thomas. Maybe I should give you an offer for Logan Thomas. You know?
Maybe I could be your...
Exactly. And I think that's a good way to sometimes buy up. Like, if the tight ends I'm looking for in lineup now are Logan Thomas's. They're going to be aged veterans, probably, because their dynasty value is completely gone. Everyone's given up hope of this, this wet dream not coming. I think the reality is those are the guys that you can buy for really, really cheap. And for production, like, because we've seen him be injured, we've seen him have good weeks, but people are just so over it. I would send a third for Logan Thomas even in lineup leagues.
100%.
That's in tight end premium, though. Let me at least caveat that. Tight end premium. I'm probably non-tight end premium. I'll pass.
How about sexier Logan Thomas? Cole Kmet.
Just above him. I'll make a distinction here. I don't know if this is correct. This is my personal opinion. Cole Kmet to me has enough value in lineup that he's a pass and a sell for me. But in best ball, I'm very interested in because Cole Kmet, he didn't make the show when I made him a blow up week, but he actually does, even with Fields starting as slow as he did, have the big blow up potential. So in best ball, at cost, I'm very interested because I only need him to have 2 of those weeks, and you did your job, Cole. Give me a couple floor plays, give me 2 of these big boom weeks, and I'm good. But in lineup, I think I'd cash out.
All right, how about the WoRP tight end life? Tight end 11. 12. Tight end 12. So you can't get outside of tight end 1 territory. But in true WoRP, playing at least 4 or 5 games, Jonnu Smith. The cast off. Who thought Jonnu Smith was going to be so high up here? And Adam, I got to do some scrolling to find Kyle Pitts.
Well, listen.
It's going to be Jonnu Smith.
I tried to tell y'all last year that Arthur Smith is the unicorn killer, and he brought over his guy. Man, he likes Jonnu. It's amazing to me. We what's that?
You made him good in Tennessee, right? He made him good.
He did, and I think it's almost like dynasty for Arthur Smith. It's like, well, they just didn't. Bill didn't use him right up there. I need to bring him back. It's like I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. It's in best ball I'm interested in, but it's amazing to me how we talk about all this NFL stuff is, people earn targets, and there's a lot of things that are earned, and there are. But the more you watch football and on a heavy basis, you watch a ton of games, you go back and watch games after they're done. That's one of the things I love having the Sunday ticket is I can actually go through. I'm like, you know what? I didn't get to see enough of this game because I watch a lot of different games, and then I have the red zone always on, right? So it's like, let me go back and watch some game of this. And you start to realize it is it's super political, man. You're gonna see guys that just have opportunity and roles because of coaches sometimes, and I'm not saying Jonnu's bad, by the way, but you have a stud in Kyle Pitts, and we got to get Jonnu the ball. It's like, wow, man. You see it from time to time. I'm not saying every team and every situation is that way. It's funny how that's presented all the time.
Usually you associate that with new coaches coming over. They always bring those 1 or 2 guys where you're like,
yeah,
we're fringe on actually being on an NFL roster, but they bring them because of locker room, or they know
they want to establish their role. They want to establish their situation in the locker room. Yeah, I'm with you.
The part about me that always hates it though is when those dudes are getting copious amounts of playing time. So a good example, I don't hate this guy at all, but Zach Pascal was with the Eagles last year. He wasn't good. Jonathan Gannon goes to the Cardinals, and it seems like every time they went to a Cardinals drive on red zone, it's Zach Pascal. I see him on the field, and I'm just fucking shaking my fist. Why? Why is Zach Pascal on the damn field? Get him out of here.
You know what? Actually, not the same coat, but the Josh Reynolds thing, though, at the same time, sometimes it works, right? Josh Reynolds is kind of this thing. Right.
Sometimes it does work.
It's just amazing though. You see it a lot. So it's with Jonnu. I think, and actually Jonnu he got that huge contract in New England, and I think at that point expectations were always going to be a lock to fail, right? But Jonnu should always have had a role. He's an athletic, good. He's a good tight end in the NFL. He's good for an NFL team. But when we already have a low ceiling on an offense and we have these studs we want to let loose, and then Jonnu's just coming to be annoying in the way, we hate it in fantasy, right?
Right. WoRP per game for the last 3 weeks. Just some quick tight end observations, and we'll get out of here. Cole Kmet actually comes in at tight end 2 for the last 3 weeks in WoRP per game, behind Mr. Travis Kelce himself. So,
actually, that's one of the things I forgot to mention about the WoRP. That's one of the things for Cole Kmet for me, where it shows, and I guess this is in lineup if you can't cash out. Like, I'm not buying Cole Kmet, to be honest with you, in lineup. But if you can't cash out for a reasonable price, like I'll just keep him and play him. But in best ball, where I'm so interested is it shows you, because he has that, when he has these monster weeks, like if you look in WoRP in frames of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the 1 week he had, like you see how clearly massive it was at that position, because it's either Fields and his running ability, and defenses lose Cole Kmet or whatever. But whatever the situation is, I don't even care. It's just he poses this type of boom, earth-shaking booms for 1 week, and it could totally win you a league, win you a week in any league.
Right. And the last one I'll give you, just a sneaky one, right? Had some dynasty value at some point, and then we wrote him off as dog shit. And in the last 3 weeks, he's kind of proven maybe I'm not dog shit. Dalton Schultz, tight end 9 in WoRP per game. The worst part about that, Adam, is for about 2 weeks there, he gave me a whole shit ton of Brevin Jordan hope. Like, hey, maybe I was just early on Brevin Jordan. He might be a thing. No,
this was one I was gonna bring up before. I didn't realize you were gonna get there. So I've been wanting to ask you about where you're at with Dalton Schultz, because if you guys are tuning into this, Dynasty Degenerates, if you're tuning into this, right, and you know as well as I do, Mike's affinity for leaning in to his hateful takes, right? When he hates somebody or a situation or a cost, you aren't going to just know about it. You're going to know about it strongly and frequently. So, Mike, give us, where are you at with Dalton Schultz today? Is he the Brock Purdy list where it's like, I see he's doing well, but I'm still going to fight it? Or are you kind of like mildly in?
No. There's only one dude on that list. That's Brock Purdy.
Okay, fair enough.
That's a list to its own.
Love it.
It's a list to its own.
Okay.
That's like the Patrick Mahomes tier, and then everybody else is quarterback, right? Like, there's a separation.
Yeah.
Or better yet, Justin Jefferson and every other wide receiver. There's a gap. But Dalton Schultz, yes.
I want to get to that. Damn, I want to get to that before we leave here. We already went over an hour, but we'll try to wrap it up quick. So with Dalton Schultz, man, I think we just need to appropriately value him now. Like, I don't want to hear the truthers coming back and screaming either. He's not a positional difference maker. He's just a solid tight end. And I think that's, if we're valuing him as a solid tight end with maybe a touch of upside, fine. I'm interested in best ball lineup. If I can find someone that still wants to pay him like he got paid to go to Houston, you can have him. I mean, it's not that complicated for tight ends for me anymore. You either fit my best ball roster construction, or in lineup you can go, unless you're super, super cheap.
Like that's the kind of lineup where you might think about buying them for a third, but you're definitely not paying the second. And in best ball, it's like, I don't know, can I find like another Dalton Schultz?
Exactly.
Do I go by Dalton Schultz or do I go by Jonnu Smith? What's the cost difference?
Yeah.
Now, if the cost the same, I'm taking Dalton Schultz, right? Like, no question about it. Let's not get ridiculous here. But if you're telling me I wanted to buy another tight end in best ball and I like what I see from Dalton Schultz, and they're like, yeah, it's going to take a second. Or I go to the guy who's got Jonnu and he's like, fuck, I didn't even know I had Jonnu on my roster. I'll take anything. You got a bag of peanuts? Sure, buddy. Here you go. Like, I'm going to go buy that instead of the actual Dalton Schultz. So that's probably where I am. I just thought it was interesting because we kind of wrote him off as dead, and the first couple of weeks were horrible. He didn't make the list on weeks 1 through 5, but you just look at the last 3, probably because the last 2 games have actually been pretty damn good for Dalton Schultz. Interesting one if you want to go explore and see if, maybe there's another Mike in your league who fucking hates Dalton Schultz. Just get rid of him.
Yeah. I'm with you on Schultz. I think I kind of like going through that in using WoRP as well as talking different player takes and trading advice and discussion. I think bringing it back to trades is always what people want to hear anyway. Trading and drafting are probably
not our start set advice.
well, not mine for sure.
That's what they come to see.
Eric does. I do like Eric on the Start Sit show, man. But I will say,
bro, I didn't even remember I made that Zach Moss face.
Oh yeah,
until I watched that short, and I was like, I really did that. Listen, with them glasses going, I go into a different, like Willie Beeman, man. Got that invisible.
I think we have.
Can't see me.
I think we have a clear difference. Like anytime we refer to you as McNutted now, you got to have the glasses on. Like I think he's just standard Mike. He's happy. Smiley. He's not going to fight you.
It's like Dion or Prime.
You put them shades on. Watch out, man. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Speaking of anything is possible, Mike.
Get over.
Dynasty Degenerates. I mean, do you know? Now, last year, some things changed for me, but since last year, people have been just telling me. Justin Jefferson's unacquirable, never going to be had, cannot ever buy him. I've heard the same about Joe Burrow. I've heard the same about Mike. There is still, for me, and we haven't seen him actually miss a full season or like early enough time. There was the 1 year with the kneecap situation, remember? But like Mahomes, right? But Justin Jefferson, I'm not saying, I think a lot of people are going to hold, but I've already seen inbox questions, deals go down. Like, we saw this with Jamar Chase. I still think Justin Jefferson is in tier 1 by himself, but you miss time. You go on the IR list as a receiver. There are other options and people don't want to wait, right? It's the reason that people charge interest and can charge what they want, and people still pay it because they want their money now. They want it today, right? And Justin Jefferson's being had in the league. So let me ask you just like, I'm going to give you a couple questions I was asked, like offers that are out there. Would you take A.J. Brown, Jordan Addison in a second, or would you take Justin Jefferson in the first?
Jefferson in the first.
Agreed. Now, what if you took the picks out? What if it was just you needed production, you're going to get off of Jefferson, but you're going to get A.J. Brown and Addison back?
A.J. Brown and Addison.
I agree. Okay. That's where I'm at, I think. But it's just funny, though. Like, people would not – if there's no injury to Jefferson, people are laughing at you.
I sent out a shit ton of Justin Jefferson offers today.
Not accepted?
Just almost universal. Any league that I was not a contender in,
I said, have any been accepted?
If I'm a contender, I don't. No, not a single one. Not a single one. I did see one get instant rejected, and then our boy Blitz posted it in the Discord. Not because I sent it to him, but the guy sent out like a Justin Jefferson offer to him, like the guy I was trying to get Jefferson off of, and asked him for like 6 firsts worth of value. Like it was like Brock Purdy, Michael Pittman, Aaron Jones, like a bunch of other shit attached to it. I'm going, what the? Well, no wonder mine. I only sent 2 pieces in mine.
Yeah.
No wonder that got instant rejected.
I mean, it's one of the things.
Sorry, Blitz. I maybe set that one up for you.
Like this is one of the things though in lineup, which is so interesting. Unless you've like built your team perfectly roster construction and you have depth and you've probably had the team around. Like a lot of teams in lineup are heavily reliant on Jefferson, and most of the times it's like, okay, well, he just had a down week. Now that's the problem. But if you're in like a shallow league, right? Lineup 9, 10, whatever. And Jefferson's probably carrying you. And if you're not like built perfect, he's why you're winning. And now it's going to be why you're losing. 3 to 4 weeks. Like that can totally change the course of a season for somebody. So I think I was just going to actually touch this with you. Like if you have Jefferson, you have a team like that. Do you kind of just like, as opposed to trading Jefferson away, not saying you couldn't, go find you could probably still trade him away, get an elite receiver and a plus back. But instead of doing that, do you kind of just let what's going to happen or try to buy back something cheaper, like Jacoby Myers, maybe just see if you can kind of sneak and claw your way into hanging around for the playoffs? Or do you just kind of let what happens, and if I'm not ready to contend, this isn't going to be my year, you kind of build for next year a little bit? Like, what do you do?
So for me, I have 2 Jefferson shares, right? Like it's a hard one to have a ton of shares of across all your dynasty leagues, just because
unless you're drafting him in the first and all those startups, right?
Right. Yeah. Which isn't me. But on both of those teams, both of my teams are, rebuilders, dog shit. Like the year's over for me anyway. So it's like you're not getting Jefferson off of me. Like unless you're coming with like pre-injury prices where I couldn't say no, then all right, we can have a discussion. But, Adam, if I wasn't in the situation where I'm on these contenders, I think it kind of just depends on how strong your contender is. If we're playing in the median with, like, a lot of our best ball leagues, some of my rosters are sitting at 10-0, right? I'm up by, like, 500 points at this point in the best ball league. I may have Justin Jefferson. He may have been doing a lot, but I roster constructed correctly. Like, I can weather the storm for 4 weeks. Like I've already gone 5. Nobody's been able to touch me yet. Now maybe I'm touchable, but at worst case scenario, I come out after 4 weeks and I'm, against the median, we're talking 8 games. I'm 4-4. So now I'm 14-4 on the year. Probably still rocking first place at that point. Like that's worst case scenario on a lot of these. I think I may try to backfill with a little bit. Lineup league, like start 9, that's probably where it's the bigger kick in the balls. Right?
Yep.
I think those are probably the situations where maybe you don't have the median, you don't have the benefit of this giant lead, and maybe you weren't in first place. Maybe you're in second or third, but your team was doing fairly well. You're in a smaller lineup league. That was a huge piece for you, right? I don't want to say you have to sell, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you just dig your heels in, right? If you're not exploring some of the guys we talked about in WoRP, whether it's a running back position, maybe upgrading that or upgrading your QB2 as a part of a Justin Jefferson deal to actually go compete for a championship, I think you're just being stubborn, right? Like the whole dynasty thing is starting to overtake the fact that you actually have a realistic chance to win money this year. Treat it more like a redraft where you need to pivot and try to figure out how to win now. Like I'm not saying you got to go all willy-nilly and just push all in, but like I do see a lot of people who are like, I'd rather lose this year than trade Justin Jefferson. All right. Good luck to you. You know what I'd rather do at the end of the year? Win some fucking money. Win some money so I can pay for this league and like 6 others for free.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit how many Justin Jefferson shares I have at the end of the year. If I'm rolling in championships, you can have them all, Adam. I'll give them away.
Well, I think that's actually to the point I'm making, because if I can get out of Jefferson, like if I'm in a position where I need production, he was carrying my team. If I can get out of him and actually net a really, really good tear down, or like if I can get back CD Lamb or AJ Brown type, like someone that's not tier 1, but if they're certainly in tier 2, maybe in tier 3 if I'm getting enough back. Now, the further you go down the list, obviously, the pluses that come back are going to have to stack up. But my biggest point is if I can get that done to still win the money, yes, you should not forego that opportunity, because at the end of the day, every year you're playing with a new buy-in, and the idea is to try to win. So now if you're not in it for winning money, I mean, you can play in free leagues, right? You don't have to play in money leagues, but I'm playing in money leagues because I want to win at some point. Now. The other thing I do want to talk about, though, is that there is, though, the scenario where it depends on your leagues. I've seen it both ways. The offers you're getting for Justin Jefferson with the team construction that I have that was so heavily reliant on him is not going to help me fucking win anyway. Like, Justin Jefferson is part of the reason I'm winning on certain one of these teams. As much as I love Aiyuk, you're giving me Aiyuk and let's say another really good plus. Aiyuk is not going to carry your team, though. Like, Aiyuk is going to be very good, but he's not going to be the reason this team that's kind of third already is winning. So I think you have to have a hard look in the mirror. What does your team look like? What's the format? To Mike's point, if you have a great team built and you're just like, I want Jefferson for the rest of the time, don't dig your heels into that. That's dumb. If you want to still try to win, you should be trying to get offers done. And if you can't net the deal that you really want or is going to help you actually have a better chance to win this year, sometimes it is better to go backwards than try to fight uphill. I do think, though, because Jefferson is so fucking valuable, man. Like, he's so highly coveted. Just make sure that you've explored every inch of finding a legit offer back. So it's never going to be fun to send away Jefferson, but it's always going to be legit to win the money. And if you can get 2 really good pieces and almost a, surefire top 10 wide receiver, top 5 receiver back, go win the money now,
Yeah, I'm with you. This was a good one. Went a little bit longer and we started a little bit later, but that's fine. We got her in.
Got it
40
in, man.
Chess. The podcast folks will get to listen to this on Friday. For the patrons, just a reminder, if you're listening to this now and you're like, oh, you guys also did this on YouTube? Yeah, we did it live. Patrons, link goes out sometime Tuesday night. Send it out. You get the email link, but I also put it in the Discord. So if you're a member, feel free to tap in, participate in the chat. If not, if you just like it in podcast form, by all means, comes out Friday. We also upload the video with the dope-ass intro by Mr. Fizzle Dallas himself.
Fizzle's got the 4D one hooked up, man. So, yeah, we appreciate it.
Oh.
Another good episode in the books, man. We'll see you back here, same time, same place. And just remember, when your league mates are playing chess, play 4D chess.
That's all I got. We're out of this thing. Peace.
Peace.